On the 6th and 9th of August 1945, two atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki respectively, killing scores of people in the two cities. The effect of the bombings can be seen in both cities even today. Of those who survived the bombings, one name stands out: Tsutomu Yamaguchi, the man who had the unique distinction of surviving not one but both bombings. This is his story. Yamaguchi lived and worked in Nagasaki, but in the summer of 1945, he was in Hiroshima for a 3-month-long business trip. He was a marine engineer who worked with Mitsubishi Heavy Industries on an oil tanker. At around 8:15 a.m. on the morning of August 6, 1945, he was heading to his place of work when he looked up and noticed a B-29 bomber soaring over Hiroshima. A small object attached to two parachutes dropped out of the plane around 3 kilometers or 1.9 miles away, and the next thing Yamaguchi remembered was a flash of blinding white light. The 13-kiloton uranium atomic bomb, also known as the Little Boy, destroyed much of Hiroshima. The blast wave shattered windows for a distance of 10 miles and was felt as far away as 37 miles. Over 2/3 of Hiroshima's buildings were demolished. Survivors of the bombings recalled that the sky was completely dark because of the cloud of smoke and ash all over them. The hundreds of fires ignited by the thermal pulse combined to produce a firestorm that had incinerated everything within 4.5 miles of ground zero. About 30 minutes after the explosion, a heavy rain began falling in areas to the northwest of the city. This black rain was full of dust, dirt, soot, and highly radioactive particles that were sucked up into the air at the time of the explosion and during the fire. It caused contamination even in areas that were remote from the explosion. Just 3 kilometers from the epicenter of the blast, Yamaguchi was violently pushed back by the blast wave before he was able to take cover in an irrigation ditch. When the bomb dropped, it resulted in him having ruptured eardrums, temporary blindness, and serious radiation burns over the left side of the top half of his body. He even fainted for a while. After regaining consciousness, he walked to his office but realized that the building was no longer there. It was completely destroyed by the bomb. He found 2 of his co-workers who had also survived, and they spent the night at a shelter. On the next day, they headed towards the train station, which was somehow still working. The destruction was more visible in daylight. The fire still flickered in places. Buildings and bridges were shattered to the ground, and unrecognizable dead bodies were lying everywhere. With the bridges down, he had to cross a river that was full of bloated corpses of men, women, and children, some of whom were stuck together. These disturbing images would remain with Yamaguchi until his death. Yet at the time, his main concern was simply reaching the other side. Wading through the dead bodies, he eventually made it across. When he reached the train station, he immediately took a train and came to Nagasaki, his hometown, on the 8th of August. On 9th August, although miserable, he reported to Mitsubishi's Nagasaki office. The company demanded a report on the events of Hiroshima. Tsutomu described everything he had seen, but the superiors could not believe that just one bomb could destroy an entire city, and they called him crazy. After all, no one had heard of an atomic bomb before that point or seen the destructive power it possessed. When Yamaguchi was trying to explain his ordeal to his superiors, it was around 11 a.m. when the second atomic bomb, also known as the Fat Man, was dropped, and the colossal explosion blew the city of Nagasaki just like that of Hiroshima. Tsutomu dropped to the floor before the windows shattered into microscopic pieces over their heads. 35,000 to 40,000 people died immediately, while tens of thousands died later due to dangerous gamma radiation. Yamaguchi was again about 1.9 miles away from ground zero. This time he was unhurt, but because of the damage to his bandages, he suffered high fever and continued to vomit for a week. Most of the infrastructure of the two cities was finished, including 70% buildings that became part of the ground. After the war, he started a family with his wife, who was also a survivor of the Nagasaki bombing, and they had 2 daughters and a son. In Japan, the survivors of atomic bombs are called hibakusha. Although at least 70 people are known to have been affected by both bombings, he is the only person to have been officially recognized by the government of Japan as double hibakusha, which means that the one who survived both explosions. Yamaguchi lost hearing in his left ear as a result of the Hiroshima explosion. He also went bald temporarily, and his daughter recalls that he was constantly swathed in bandages until she reached the age of 12. Despite this, Yamaguchi went on to lead a healthy life. He became a vocal proponent of nuclear disarmament. It was recommended that the survivors of the bombings do not have children because the damaged DNA would be inherited by future generations, causing them to suffer from headaches, vomiting, internal bleeding, peeling skin, and anemic blood. Yamaguchi had 3 children who suffered health issues throughout their lives. Late in his life, he began to suffer from radiation-related ailments, including cataracts and acute leukemia. His wife also suffered from radiation poisoning from black rain after the Nagasaki explosion and died of kidney and liver cancer in 2008 at the age of 88. Yamaguchi died of stomach cancer on January 4, 2010 in Nagasaki at the age of 93. Thank you for watching. If you found the video interesting, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to Seanvolution for more such content.